Hello and welcome back to the Bookcast Club, a podcast for book lovers. I'm Jenny, coming to you from Norwich in the UK, and I am joined by a different Sarah tonight, also coming from Norwich. Hello, Sarah. Thank you for joining me. Would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. So my name's Sarah, and I am a booktuber. I live in Norwich as well as Jenny, and I'm a GP. I'm a mum, and I've been a reader for all of my life, really, since I could read. So thank you very much for having me.
Did you just say the name of your channel? Did I just totally blank out there?
No, I didn't say it. So my channel is called Your Tree Shelf.
You don't mind sharing your channel name, do you?
No, not at all, not at all.
Okay, good. So I've got Sarah. You'll laugh. You're like the third or fourth Sarah we've had on this podcast. I feel like it's almost, you have to be called Sarah to come on the podcast now, because I'm sure you're like the fourth Sarah we've had on. It's really funny.
That's a very common name.
So Sarah and I, we had loads of different ideas as to what we could talk about today, but we've settled on discussing recent 5-star reads. Mm-hmm. And generally how we rate books 5 stars, whether we give 5 stars out very often. I think we'll have a conversation about 5 stars in general. And then we're also going to be chatting social media and how social media has influenced our reading and maybe influenced reading in general. So 2 parts to this one. We're going to start off with recent 5-star reads, which anybody that listens to this podcast on a regular basis probably knows that I don't give 5 stars out very often. It's very rare that I give out a 5-star rating, and we can chat about this. How generous are you with your 5 stars?
I am more generous than I thought I was, because I thought I was quite stingy with my 5 stars, but then when I looked back on my Storygraph stats, I actually gave about 20% of my books 5 stars last year.
Wow, okay.
Which is a lot more than I thought I would. But I do wonder if part of that is because I'm more confident in what I'll like and better at predicting what books will be good books for me rather than being too generous. But then I also like on Storygraph how you can give quarter stars. So I've got quite a few 4.75s, which aren't quite 5 stars. So I've probably, since I've used Storygraph, done that a bit more, whereas I would have used 5 stars before the quarter stars became available, because Goodreads is like 4 or 5, isn't it? So
yeah, forgot about the quarter stars on Storygraph. Yeah, I we'll talk about this. I wish I was less of a critical reader. I think that's my problem, because the books I give 5 stars to tend to be trashy celebrity memoirs, and for some reason that's like catnip to me, and I love them, and it doesn't matter whether they're well written or not. I'll just be like, oh my god, it's brilliant, 5 stars. I feel like with fiction I'm much more of a critical reader, and I'm much more difficult to please, and I wish I wasn't like that. I don't know whether that comes from doing creative writing and studying English literature up to A-level. I did it too. I find it quite hard to not read with like a critical perspective all the time, and I wish I could like lay off books a little bit more than I do, because I've looked back through not even my recent reads, it's probably like the last year's worth of books, and other than celebrity memoirs, I don't think I've given any 5 stars. Some have had like 4.75s. On Storygraph, I think that's probably as close as you're going to get from me, to be honest. If there's quarter star rate in the equation, then a 5-star might never happen. I don't know a situation where it would. But yeah, do you find that you're a critical reader like that, or is there a point where a book doesn't need to be perfect and you'd still give it? I don't even know what perfect is, to be honest. But yeah, is there a point where you don't worry and it would get 5 stars?
I think it's about, for me, partly my emotional connection to the book and partly my enjoyment, because sometimes I just question the whole idea of even rating books, just because I'll give a book which is beautifully written maybe 3 stars because I found there were parts where I found it boring or I didn't want to pick it up as much, and then there might be a romance book that is much less highbrow, but I end up giving it a higher rating just because I got so much enjoyment out of it. And so I think that then I question, what should I be rating on? Then I always come back to how much I enjoyed the book is what I should be doing the rating on, not how well written do I think a book is, because they're two different questions, aren't they? I do wonder as well if I'm more likely, especially just made me think because of what you said, whether I'm more likely to give non-fiction 5 stars, especially with memoirs. It's somebody's lived experience, isn't it? So you almost can't rate somebody's lived experience because that's what happened to them and that's what they think about it. Whereas I guess you can rate what an author has generated themselves as their own fictional work, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's quite hard to, I don't know, I can critique fiction on a structural level and on an actual sentence by sentence level, whereas memoir I don't tend to do that because they tend to be more conversational anyway, particularly the memoirs I tend to read, which are celebrity ones. I always feel like if they've written in their authentic voice, then that's fine. So, yeah, I think it is easier to give non-fiction, maybe in general, higher ratings. But like you say, it's kind of meaningless, isn't it? You know, the Goodreads ratings, I always used to get annoyed because they kind of dictated what the different star ratings meant. And like 3 stars was, it was okay, or something like that. And I'm like, well, 3 stars for me is more than it was okay. Like, it's just, it's funny old system anyway, isn't it?
It is a funny system, and it's quite arbitrary. And also sometimes I look back and I think, how did I give that 5 stars like 5 years ago, or how did I not give that a higher rating? So I think I tend to rate it as soon as I finish based on my feelings, and sometimes if it's had a really good ending, I think it ends up with a higher star than if I'd waited a few days and then thought what was my opinion of the whole book, instead of how much did I go at the ending. So
well, one of the books I'm going to talk about, definitely the ending, I was like, oh yeah, 5 stars.
Okay.
So do you have certain things in books that you kind of are drawn to and maybe sense before you've even read them that you might give a book 5 stars? Because I've definitely got little things that I quite like in books that, well, we've just talked about endings, that might draw you more towards a 5-star rating. Are there certain things that you quite like in books?
So for me, I really want to see character development. That's one of my key things. So if I have an unlikable character, that's okay as long as they've shown character development during the book. I think if they start off being unlikable, they don't change at all over the book, I'm more likely to not enjoy the book. So I really want them to develop. I really want to connect with them emotionally. I quite like books where we follow characters over a long time, so maybe a few decades, and we sort of see the sort of course of their life, how it goes, and I think there's more chances to connect with them if you're following them over a long period of time. Although sometimes there's a book set in 24 hours and it's just you feel like you've got to know them by the end because it's a very slow-paced book. But I think generally speaking, I like books set over a longer period of time where I feel like I've really got to know the characters. I've seen the trajectory of their life and their ups and downs and personal growth happening during the course of the book. I think that would probably be something that would draw me in. So I don't know, what about you?
Yeah, I think character development's a big one for me as well, but I also quite like the setting and the like scenery in a book, I suppose. I'm a big fan of like haunted houses or like houses as characters, as cliche as that is. I'm very big on like if the setting is almost a character in itself. I really like that. Also, left field endings, and we'll talk about a book that I really liked recently, that the ending just blew me away, and almost to that point that, like you said, I like rated it almost straight away after finishing it because I was so blown away. Even though I didn't give it 5 stars, neither of the books I'm going to talk about I actually gave 5 stars, but they're probably as close as you're going to get from me. Even though there were bits of that book that I found a little bit boring, I still, the ending was like, oh, that's an extra star for me. So slightly bizarre left field characters in general I quite like too. So I think any sort of a lover millennial woman, slightly quirky millennial woman character. But like you say, they can't, they need to be well developed. I don't just like any old book with with a millennial woman in. Yeah, so shall we move on to talk our 5-star reads? Would you like to go first?
Sure. So the first one that I've picked, I actually read twice. So I read it first a couple of years ago, and then I wanted to do more rereads. So I decided to read this one again, and I loved it just as much the second time around. And that's Writers and Lovers by Lily King. I don't know if it's the one that you've read or not. But
no, I've not read it. I've heard of it, though.
Yeah, it's so good. I describe it as a literary romance. So it's got romance in it, but I wouldn't necessarily describe it as a romance book because it covers so much other topics as well. But it's about a woman called Casey who is an aspiring writer, and she has graduated from university with a lot of debts, and she's waitressing to try and pay her bills and try and pay back some of her student loans. She's writing in every spare minute that she can. And she's also going through a really difficult time because her mum was abroad and her mum died quite suddenly. And so she's got a lot of grief happening, which is generating quite a bit of anxiety for her as well. So she's sort of dealing with the mental health side of things, plus doing this job where she's not really loving being a waitress, but she's just doing it to pay the bills. And then there's it's kind of a love triangle, but I don't want to use the word love triangle because it'll probably put people off. But she meets an older writer who's successful, and he's a widower, and he's got 2 sons, and she forms a relationship with him. But she also meets a younger guy who's the same age as her. He's a writer, but he's a bit less reliable. But she has more of a connection, more chemistry with him. And she's also trying to work out, does she even want to be with anybody, because she's going through all of this emotional thing with her, the grief and her anxiety and things. And she's not really sure what to do, and she's sort of navigating through that stage of her life. So it's really, really well written, and I feel like the characters are all really fleshed out, and you really root for Casey. So I just connected to it really well both times, and I absolutely loved it.
So is this like literary fiction?
Yes.
So like romance, but literary fiction romance?
Yeah. So the romance is a big part of it, but I'd say that the grief side of things is as big a part, and just what it's like to work in a low-income job with big debts as well. That's quite a big part of the book. So there's definitely romance there, but it's not, I wouldn't class it as a romance book, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just looking at the cover of it, and I don't think you'd find it in the like typical romance section in Waterstones.
No.
I thought I'd heard of it, but I don't think I have. It's got a very beautiful cover.
I love the cover as well, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really good. It's got a really high rating on Storygraph. It's got like a 4.08 average, which is pretty high on there, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds really good. Well, my next book is quite centred on grief as well, so we might have a theme going on here. So my first one, which I didn't give 5 stars to, but I so easily could have, just because I love the ending so much. I will say bits of it were a little bit slow, or maybe just weird to the point that I was like, don't really know what's going on here. But I did enjoy it a lot, and that is Motherthing by Ainslee Hogarth. I don't know if you've heard of this one.
I haven't, no.
You might recognise the... I mentioned it a couple of episodes ago, actually, because I was reading it at the time, but I've since finished it. It is the story of Abby and her husband Ralph, and it opens with them discovering Ralph's mother has died in their house that she lived with them, and they've come back to her. They found her dead, and she's taken her own life. And in this very first opening chapter, you get a sort of sense as to who your narrator is. So Abby's the narrator because she slips off the mother's ring and like pockets it. So in terms of character development, I was intrigued straight away. It's like who this Abby was. But the story then follows her and her husband both trying to navigate their grief and the ghost of Ralph's mother. And it's either a metaphorical ghost or is it a real ghost? You're never quite sure. But he ends up, really deeply feeling his grief, and he can't hold down his job. and she is a carer in an old people's home. In this home, she's got a favourite resident who almost is like her respite, I guess, from her husband at home. And her resident is being threatened with being moved basically to a different care home by her daughter, who she's quite distanced from anyway. I guess it's quite just a general domestic setting, to be honest. Like, she goes to work, she goes home, her husband hasn't got out of bed, hasn't washed for days. It sounds quite simple, but what you see is her sort of unravelling as the book goes on, and she gets more and more kind of obsessed with this resident and keeping the resident in the home that she's in. She ends up, the way she finds out that the daughter is moving her mum to a different care home is that she sees some documentation through her like car window, and so it all starts getting a lot more kind of sinister as the book goes along. She gets a bit more stalkery with her behaviour towards the daughter, and the culmination of it all at the end just completely blew my mind. The ending that Ainslee Hogarth came up with, to the point that I couldn't quite believe what was happening. Have you read, I've talked about this on the podcast before, Vladimir?
No, but I've seen people talking about it on BookTube, and it was a book I'd never have picked up because of the cover. And when
Manchester.
Yeah, it looks like a Mills and Boon type cover. And then when I actually heard somebody talking about it, I thought, this doesn't sound anything like the cover of this book, and I was intrigued by it. So you think that's
I really enjoyed that book, and I'm almost kind of recommending this off the back of that. I really enjoyed Vladimir up until the ending, and then that ending I couldn't believe either, but more in the sense that I could not believe the author had gone with the ending that they'd gone with, because it just did not fit in with the rest of the book. I came across a review today on Goodreads that I must have liked at the time, and it said, it was some sort of thing that said basically that the author had been given like 10 minutes to finish the book, and that is the ending that she'd come up with. This is the total opposite to that, and it's a really clever ending, and it wraps up the whole book really cleverly and in a way that reflects on motherhood and like links that whole kind of theme together. And I can't say what it is because it's very much a spoiler, but I loved that ending to the point that I so nearly gave it 5 stars. And I was like, no, I can't break all my rating rules just because I've been wowed by an ending. But yeah, if any listeners heard me moaning about Vladimir, I have the exact opposite opinion of Motherthing, because I thought the ending was so good.
You've really made me want to read it. Yeah, and I do like a domestic drama as well, and I like, for me, that link of care homes and families and stuff kind of fits in with my job as well. And so I find that anything that I kind of deal with at work on a semi-regular basis is quite interesting for me as well, to sort of see it from another side, another perspective as well. So it sounds like I'd really like it.
Yeah, I think you would. Yeah, and I guess the whole thing with the care home, you really feel for Abby because she's got very attached to this resident of hers. Mm-hmm. Although, you get the sense that they should never be getting attached to people that closely. But she can see what's happening with this estranged daughter who's essentially just moving her mum because she wants to put her in a cheaper residential home. Just because she can, basically. And it is that they almost have this mother-daughter relationship. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, as we're getting older, how our relationship's changing with our parents. And she kind of has that nurturing relationship with this resident of hers. And so you can see her heartbreaking over that. And it's just, I really, really enjoyed it. And then to tie it all up with the ending that she does, I was like, wow, she really went there.
I'm very intrigued. I'll definitely add it onto my wish list because it sounds really interesting. My second one is one that I absolutely loved last year. It's one called A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza. I don't know if it's one that you've read.
I haven't read it, but I have heard of this one,
Yeah, so I heard about it from Jen Campbell because I remember how much she loved it on BookTube, and she talked about it all the time, and I thought I have to try this book, and I listened to it on audio, which I think was really good as well, because the characters are from India, the parents are from India, and I really love when you get a own voice as narrator as well, so you can kind of hear their accents and things. So I think that brought it to life. But it's about a family who the parents are born in India and they're Muslim, and they move to America just after they've got married, and their 3 children are born in America. It starts at the oldest daughter's wedding, and we know that the youngest child, the son, has come to the wedding and they haven't seen him for a really long time, and they're not sure what's going to happen and the dynamics of the family, and we don't know what's happened. We know something's happened to break the family apart. And then we go back in time to when the parents first come to America, and we lead up to the wedding. The relationships in the book, it's very much a story of growing up in quite a strict Muslim community, but in a non-Muslim country. So the children's experience is very different to the parents' experience. 9/11 happens as part of the book. It's not a massive part, but it affects how the children are treated at school and things as well. But it's very much focusing in on the family relationship, specifically the father-son relationship. And I don't think I've ever seen a father-son relationship depicted as well as I saw it in this book. The writing is just stunning, and you feel such a massive emotional connection to all of the characters. The family love each other so much, but they can't communicate very well with each other, and all of the blocks in their communication is what sort of leads up to this tragedy which happens, which splits the family apart, and then they're trying to rebuild it. I just felt the emotional depth in all the relationships was done so well, and the author's so young, she's like in her early 20s or something, and how she managed to write those relationships so well, I don't know, but I felt it was just incredible. And it's her first book as well, so I can't wait to see what she writes next, because it was one of the if I could give it 6 stars, I think I'd give it 6. It's so good.
Wow. Yeah, this one's on my TBR. I feel like I was just trying to fact check this. I feel like I first heard about this because it was the first book published under Sarah Jessica Parker's imprint.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's how it was originally on my radar she must have shared it on social media. But then, it got read far and wide then, and it was everywhere across kind of BookTube and stuff. So yeah, it's easy to forget a book, I think, when, I don't know, you hear about it, then you hear loads about it, and then you kind of like put it to the back of your mind for actually hearing talk about it again. I'm like, oh no, I would quite like to read that. Sounds really good.
That's so good. It's quite long. I'd say probably around 400 pages, and I remember I got the book out from the library and it went back before I'd read it originally, because the writing was really small and I had a deadline. I thought, I'm not going to get to this in time. So that, and then but I'm actually glad in a way, because then I got to listen to it, and I think the Audible does definitely add something to it.
So my second book, which I also finished recently, and again, I didn't give it 5 stars, but maybe because it's not in the genre that I choose to read from a lot. It's Carla by Colin Walsh.
Oh, I've heard about this one.
Walsh. Yes, so I came across this because Mercedes, who's been on this podcast before, recommended it. Yeah, I feel like she recommended it based on people having enjoyed Penance by Eliza Clark. And it might have been when me, you, and Mercedes had met up with each other, that she said to me that if I'd found Penance a bit too heavy going, then Carla was like of a similar nature, but maybe not quite so brutal. And yeah, I think that's what I'd agree with actually now, having read it. Penance I thought was a very good book, but it's very dark. And if you don't like spending time in teenage girls' heads, then it's not the book for you, because you spend a lot of time with teenage girls who have very dark thoughts. And that's what I really struggled with Penance. Was the like bullying in it, and just how the girls treat each other, and it's quite difficult to spend a lot of time with characters being like that, as good as I thought it was. Whereas Carla it's really weird because the books came out about the same time. I don't know how this happens in publishing, but if you look at the covers of both of them, they basically have like a group of Penance is a group of girls, and Carla presumably is just a group of friends. They're all sat with their backs facing you, and one of them has their face scribbled out, and the covers both have a cover like that.
So similar.
Yeah, and they came out about the same time, so I don't know how that happens, to be honest. Carla is based around a friendship group, and it opens with you knowing that Carla disappeared one year when they were young, in their teens. Within the first chapter, you've like jumped ahead 20 years, and you realise that the friends have been estranged since Carla's disappearance. And within those first couple of chapters, her body is found in woodland nearby. You realise that she has been murdered, because what they find is not just her body, but her skull with a Polaroid photograph of the group left inside. And then the whole book then follows the sort of backstory to all of that and how they reached that point. The literal opening chapter is on the night that she disappears, and all you really get a sense of is that she's being chased through woodland on a bike, and it's almost like her friends are chasing her. So it's set up really kind of like you don't know what's happened at the start, and you follow her three friends. Then chapter by chapter you follow her three close friends from the time, and it jumps back and forth between present day and the night and weeks, days leading up to her disappearance. And I thought it was really, really good. It also, for a crime thriller book, it's written really, really well, and it definitely goes way deeper than I thought it was going to go in terms of like the criminal underworld that is in this Irish town that they live in. But yeah, it's just a really complex crime book written in a really kind of accessible but literary way, I suppose. And I really, really enjoyed it. I listened to the audio actually, which was good because it's her three friends. They're all narrated by different people, which I always quite like.
I like that.
Book. Rather than somebody trying to do like female and male voices in different accents. I find that quite difficult sometimes. So different people for the different characters. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one. It was a good call on Mercedes' part to kind of recommend it based on the back of Penance, because I guess they're fairly similar, but maybe Carla's more, I don't know, I felt like it had more depth to it in terms of what was going on, whereas Penance is just mean teenagers being really mean.
I think I might struggle with that, having a nearly teenage daughter. I think I might struggle to read that one.
Robin's only 4, and that's what I really struggled with, was just the thought of how mean teenage girls can be to each other. Quickly, before we move on to talk social media, what are some of the celeb memoirs you've enjoyed?
Oh, so I have 2 that I absolutely loved. So one of them was Open Book by Jessica Simpson. I don't know if
Simpson. I didn't know she had a memoir.
Yeah, and she reads out the audiobook as well herself, and she has some extra tracks at the end that she sings, which is really good. And I loved Jessica Simpson when she was on Newlyweds about 20
oh my god,
ago.
right, me and Sarah giving away our age here. Downstairs I have the whole of Newlyweds on DVD that I can't even watch because I had to buy them oh god, we sound old. I had to buy the DVDs region free because I couldn't get hold of them, and region 2, which was what UK DVDs needed to be, I had to buy a special DVD player to play region free DVDs so that I could watch Newlyweds. So I didn't know she had a memoir, and now I'm going to have to read it.
Yes, and it talks through Newlyweds quite a lot, but it actually sort of blows through what Newlyweds. Yeah, Nick Lachey, but it tells you how fake Newlyweds was as well, so you might be sad.
I did kind of know that, but Yeah, that makes me sad.
But her book it's so good, and I gave it 5 stars actually. It made my best books of the year. I loved it so much, and
oh my God, right,
you're gonna have to read it. Yeah, definitely. And
oh my God, I used to buy her like makeup and stuff. She had a makeup.
Did you? I bought all her CDs. I have like a big collection of Jessica Simpson
all her albums.
Yeah,
bought her lip gloss that she had. Yeah,
we didn't even know we had this in common, did we?
Jessica Simpson. Who knew?
Yeah, you have to read it. It's really, really good. We'll have to listen to it. I definitely recommend that. And the other one was Alicia Keys' memoir, More Myself, which she also reads. And I do think it adds something if a celebrity reads their own memoir, because you hear it more in how they want it to come across as well, don't you? Mm-hmm. But that one's more, I don't know, it's completely different to Jessica Simpson's, but it covers so much more than just her music. It covers so much about her sort of development as a woman and what it's like dealing with fame and being a parent and a blended family, because her husband has children from a previous relationship as well. And it's very much her sort of finding herself and becoming like a strong, I think she was always a strong woman. Like she grew up in quite a poor neighborhood in quite a difficult area in New York, just with her and her mum. But how she sort of went from that world to her super fame and everyone scrutinising everything she did and people telling her what she had to do all the time. And the first opening scene of the book is her kind of having a breakdown, because she's basically surviving on about 3 or 4 hours sleep a night and being told where she has to be, what she has to do the whole time, and she can't do it anymore. And then it's sort of her rewinding how she got to that point and how she changed things for the better afterwards. But it was a brilliant memoir. And she's not somebody that I like her music, but I haven't sort of collected all her albums like I have for Jessica.
Yeah.
But I've really respected her as a person after I'd listened to her memoir. I thought she was a wonderful woman. I really respect her.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, like she's not somebody I would think to read her memoir, but yeah, that does sound really good.
Yeah.
And I'm just
go for Jessica first.
I could do Jessica first.
Yeah. Yeah, so tell me about yours that you've really enjoyed.
Well, I've definitely talked about them on here before because I enjoyed them so much. But Britney Spears' memoir, The Woman in Me, I really loved. She doesn't narrate it. I don't know. It's
Michelle Williams, isn't it?
Yeah, which is really lovely. And she does a little kind of intro to it at the start, Britney Spears does. I presume it was ghostwritten as well, but it's just she's very generous. She's a very lovely person. And although she's been treated pretty badly by a lot of the people in her life, like she's just so generous and warm as to how she speaks about everybody, which is just nice to listen to, because I don't think I could be like that. So yeah, if you want to listen to somebody who's a very generous soul, then definitely Britney Spears' memoir. I also, and again, I don't even know, I must have seen somebody recommend it on YouTube, but Paris Hilton's memoir, I think it's just called Paris, I really enjoyed. And she isn't somebody that I would have thought to read her memoir either.
No, me neither.
But she was, when she was like, I can't remember how old she is, but she's a teenager, and she's sent to a boarding school that basically is for troubled teens, but a lot of abuse went on at those schools.
Is that the thing where they kidnap them in the middle of the night or something? Is that
the scene where she's kidnapped in the middle of the night? It made me cry, and you'd think, I don't know, I wouldn't have thought that would make me upset hearing how that's done. But again, it's something to do with having children, I think, although I'm sure anybody'd find it upsetting just imagining it yourself. But to think that anybody, I don't know, put their children through that is, it's really disturbing actually. And it made me quite upset when she described the scene where she was kidnapped, because she didn't know that's what was happening. And it was like 2 or 3 burly blokes coming into her room and just kidnapping her, which must have been terrifying. And she's like she's like 15 or something, 14, 15. And then a lot of abuse went on at the schools. So she, in her in her more recent life, she's done a lot of campaigning to get them closed down, or at least, reveal what happened in them, and to support, obviously, because she's incredibly famous, but not all the people that went to them were. So she's done a lot of support in, bringing to light what went on at those places.
She's an interesting character.
She is, and actually what I found really interesting was her talking about how she was a character as well. So is it The Simple Life she was in?
Yes, that's how I got to know who she was.
With Nicole Richie.
Yeah, and they both played to be they didn't have a brain cell between them in the TV show. She's a super successful businesswoman, so she's
actually really clever, really
woman.
astute. Yeah, and actually that's really interesting. So I did think Paris Hilton's memoir was brilliant, actually, and well worth a read. And then the other one I really enjoyed was Miriam Margolyes' memoir.
Oh, I've heard about that one.
She's had more than one. Hold on, let me just... Oh, This Much Is True is the one that I've read. I think she's had a newer one out since then. If you like Miriam Margolyes and you've seen any of her cameo videos that she does, or
I only really know her from the Harry Potter films, I think.
Yeah, and she talks about the Harry Potter films, and that her thoughts on the Harry Potter films are very interesting. Her thoughts on Leonardo DiCaprio when she was in Romeo and Juliet are very interesting.
Oh yes, of course, she was the nurse.
She's the nurse in Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, of course she is. Yeah, she was great in that film.
She's great, and if you've ever seen her on Graham Norton, she's very vulgar, so she's very vulgar all the way through it, and I just quite enjoyed myself.
Oh, great. Yeah, I know. Again, that isn't one I'd have thought to read, but it sounds, you've made me want to read that as well.
It's very good. She's had a very interesting life, has a very interesting childhood and upbringing. She's generous with what she has to say about the films she's worked on. She's scathing of the Monty Python lot, which I found very interesting as well, because she was in the same oh god, I can't remember, they all go to Cambridge University, I think.
Oh, the Footlights.
Whatever the
Footlights.
Yes. It's quite scathing of them, which I enjoyed. Yeah, and then she's very promiscuous, which she also shares, so I enjoyed all of it. This is where we pop a little ad break in to tell you about all the different ways you can support the pod, most of which are totally free. We'll start with Patreon, as this is where we've been hiding over the last few months. Tiers start at £2 a month, with our bonus episode tier costing just £5. Now that we're seasonal and generally recording ahead of time, Patreon is where you will find all our timely conversations on recent and current reads, DNFs, book prizes, and loads more. You can try our bonus tier for free today. We highly encourage a binge listen to our back catalogue of bonus episodes, and we will take no offence if you choose to cancel afterwards. If you love receiving book mail and personalised recommendations, our top tier is for you. We get you to fill in a survey, and then we tailor our book recommendations to your preferences. Find all the details in our show notes. Now, for the free ways to support us that make a huge difference, a really effective and easy way of showing your support is by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. There is a link in the show notes that will take you straight to the Apple Podcast page, where you can write, hopefully, a 5-star review. If you listen on Spotify, you can also very easily give us a star rating. You can also share our posts on social media. We're at Bookcast Club on Instagram and TikTok. You can sign up to our newsletter on Substack, where we share even more book recommendations, our pick of the new releases, and all the latest podcast news. But the best way for us to find new listeners is by you telling your book-loving friends and family about us. However you choose to show your support, we, as always, want to say a huge thank you. We appreciate each and every one of our listeners. So Sarah and I were gonna chat social media and have a general discussion, I guess, around how I think it's affected reading in general, but mainly how it's influenced us as readers, I think. So for you, we were messaging each other before we started recording, both kind of saying that social media, or maybe more the internet and just that social side of the internet completely changed us as readers in general. So how did you come to find yourself on BookTube?
It was all because of Simon Savage.
Oh, really?
So he used to do a podcast a long time ago called The Readers.
The Readers, yeah.
Yeah, which I actually guested on that once, a very long time ago. Yeah, for the Readers Book Club. And we just kind of have been friends since then. And I was having a really bad, sort of horrible time with burnout and things at work. And I was just talking to a few people about things, and he was one of the people that I talked to. And he said to me, Sarah, you need to get on BookTube and you need to have a BookTube channel, and it will really help to have something like a new hobby outside of work. And I hadn't watched BookTube at all. I vaguely knew about it, but I was really into book podcasts at the time, and I didn't really see the need to do YouTube as well. So he sort of persuaded me to do it, and I'd never even watched BookTube when I started. So he gave me a few people's channel names to watch. So he said, like, look what they do and try doing it yourself. And he gave me a shout out on after I did my first episode, so I got my first sort of 300 or so subscribers because of him.
Oh, I love it.
I never looked back. I can't imagine a world without BookTube now, because it's just brought, I don't think anything negative to my life, it's just brought so much positivity and happiness, and friends who I've actually got in, even in American things, who I've actually met in real life now because of BookTube. So it's only brought positivity to my life and to my reading, I'd say. So I'm a big fan of BookTube.
Oh, that's so nice. I mean, we're gonna sounds way deeper than it needs to, but I guess the whole reason that we're here is because of BookTube, because I was the same. So I discovered BookTube, I don't know, 2014, 2015. It was one of those things that I was like, I could do that. I read. And I just started watching a lot, and then built up. I remember finding Mercedes. So she was one of the first people I found. And I remember just building up the courage to then start. Yeah, I did that for like 5 years, I suppose. I then did a couple of videos with my friend Alice, who used to do this podcast with me, and we started this podcast. But that kind of came off the back of the fact that we filmed with each other, and I loved the dynamic between the two of us, and I actually much preferred, filming with somebody else than I did sitting in front of the camera on my own talking. I find that quite difficult. I find I do much better when I've got somebody to bounce off. I'm more myself than when I'm just one-on-one to a camera. So that's how the podcast came to be, really. Me and Alice were like, should we start a podcast? Didn't know what we were doing. Used to release an episode once every 3 months when we fancied it. Realised that's not really how a podcast is supposed to be done, when we had like a 1-star review saying that we weren't very organised. I was like, oh, rude. And then that's how it all came to be, really. In 2020, we kind of looked into getting more hosts so that we could post more regularly, and that's how we are where we are today. And I guess it's all off the back of, God, we sound so old, all off the back of like the internet.
We do remember when it started, though.
I remember the sound of dial-up.
Me too.
And just like being able to access communities of people that have the same, not just reading taste, but also like the same interests as you do, which isn't that easy to do in real life. So I think kind of that's the origin story of the podcast. But it's definitely, ultimately it does all lead back to BookTube and Sarah, Aussie Sarah, who's on the pod. That's how she had found me. Like, she'd found my BookTube channel and found me on Instagram, and then when we put a shout out for more hosts, that's when she applied. Chris is obviously off BookTube. So this is how we're all here, really. But we also discussed the fact that our reading tastes have completely changed since discovering the internet. But since, I guess, discovering other people talking about books online and sharing what they read online, yeah, what I read now is totally different to what I was reading in, 2010 or whatever.
Yeah, me too. And my reading, I used to read, before I did BookTube, I reckon I read about 25 books a year. And now I read probably around 100 books a year. So it's hugely increased the amount of time that I'm reading for, because especially I think as somebody who makes videos, you can't be talking about the same book for the whole month. You need to be keeping an eye on how much you're reading. But yeah, no, I really think there's a channel for everybody, isn't there? There's a channel, if whatever you're into book-wise, then there's somebody who likes the same stuff as you, who you can get recommendations from and who you can have chats with and stuff, which is really nice, because like you say, if you had to try and find that in real life, it would be next to impossible, I think. So
yeah, agreed,
it's lovely
definitely.
that you can meet so many people.
So how has social media affected what you read? And I guess when I'm talking social media now, I'm talking less the internet in general, and more the kind of classic social media that we think of, like Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter, not that I'm on there, and TikTok and that kind of thing. Like, do those platforms influence what you read?
I don't think massively. So Instagram, I've tried really hard to spend as little time as possible on there, because I just find as soon as I open the app, suddenly half an hour's gone past, and I think I could have been reading. What have I actually been watching?
Welcome to my life,
yeah. So I try not to look at that too much. I've never been a person who takes really aesthetically pleasing pictures of their books, and I know there's some beautiful bookstagrammers out there, but for me, if I take a picture of what I'm reading, it's literally a book in my hand and I go, there's the photo. I don't do post photos, but I completely respect people that do. And I'd say Twitter, I haven't been on Twitter for ages, or X, because I just found it was such a negative place that I came off it years ago.
Place to be, yeah.
No, and TikTok, I'm again showing my age, I'm not on TikTok, but I think I'm only aware of what's on TikTok because all of a sudden I'm calling it BookTok now. YouTube is very much sort of linked for some people with what's on TikTok, and so when a book blows up, like I was saying earlier about Fourth Wing, I think that was a huge TikTok book, and I became aware of it because of YouTube, and I did really enjoy that. But I think overall it's probably had a positive impact, because I wonder if it's made reading more cool for people who weren't big readers before, and I think it's probably quite a good influence on younger people. If they see people doing book talks and things, maybe it would make them more likely to read those books than YouTube or Facebook or something like that. But that might just be my assumption as a not very young person anymore.
I mean, I guess it's where the young people are, isn't it? I mean, I like video reviews, but I much prefer like long form video reviews, and TikTok doesn't lend itself to that. I am on TikTok because the podcast has an account, but obviously you only get a snapshot of a book, and in a 15-second video you might get, I don't know, my top 5 spooky books for cozy season, I don't know, and then that's all you'll see is the covers of the books. I do much prefer long form video, and hearing somebody that I trust in their taste talk about a book that they've enjoyed. So I'm much more likely to write down a recommendation from YouTube than I am on Instagram or TikTok or any of those platforms, really.
Yeah, me too. It
can't be a bad thing if it gets more people reading. And it didn't exist when we were younger, and I had a period in my life where I didn't read at all, so I kind of didn't read when I was at uni, and then I guess I only picked it up again in like the first few years following university, and that all that existed then was Goodreads and the community groups on Goodreads. And that's how I got back into reading again, was joining some of those, and like they'd have book clubs and stuff, and
reading challenges.
That's how I got reading again, reading challenges. So that was the old school way of getting back into reading. So I think anything that encourages people to keep reading, I'm all for. And I've definitely picked up books that I've seen being reviewed on BookTube by people that I trust, that I've also seen on TikTok. So Legends and Lattes was one. And Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries, I definitely saw appearing on like TikTok before I saw them like seep through to BookTube. And to be honest, I like letting other people do the legwork and decide whether books are good or not, and then tell me whether I should read them, because I enjoyed both of those. So yeah, I think it's a good thing, and it's interesting to see, you know, in the likes of Waterstones, like a table with top books on TikTok right now kind of recommendations, which I'm sure rubs people up the wrong way. Yeah, it's no bad thing if more people are reading and more young people are reading. And how old do we sound now?
Well, yeah, no, I know. I know.
Sound like
and
your
also,
grandmother.
It's been great for some authors, hasn't it? Like some authors who've suddenly taken off and become the ones that get adapted into Netflix shows and stuff, probably because of things like TikTok as well. So it's probably been really good for a lot of authors as well.
Well, I feel like Legends and Lattes was self-published until obviously it all kicked off on TikTok, and now he's on to his third book in the series, and so it's definitely good for some people. Yeah,
and I think we were saying before as well how it's such a good place to get recommendations, because before for me it was, you know, like talking quite a long time ago, I would get like Oprah Book Club books and Richard and Judy Book Club books, or what I'd seen in the supermarkets and stuff, or just kind of wandering around the library, whereas now I feel like I'm so much better informed on loads of different genres, books from loads of countries around the world, books in translation, books about, you know, lots of different minority groups and all things like that I wouldn't have necessarily come across before, because there was nobody who I was hearing talking about so many different kinds of books that weren't the mass market books that you see in those places. And I just think that's a really positive thing as well, that you can find out a lot more about your reading tastes and the kind of things you're into, and then you can focus in on those things by the channels you watch and all of those kind of things, which I think is a really good thing.
In our WhatsApp messages, you mentioned that you were no longer embarrassed to read romance books.
Yeah, there was always this kind of, I like this kind of book but I don't want to admit it in public thing, and I really think as well that that's gone now, because there's whole channels that just read romance. There's lots of people that will read literary fiction and then also love romance and stuff like that, or there's people who really love horror and literary fiction and all different kinds of genres, and then I don't feel like I have to say, oh, I like romance but don't tell anyone because it's just much more widely accepted that everybody likes different things. There's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. If you like it, that's fine, which is really nice. And I would never have read a fantasy book if it wasn't for BookTube, I don't think, because I just wouldn't have assumed I'd like fantasy, but I really like it now, and I've got a whole section of my bookshelves which are fantasy, which I don't think I'd have even thought about trying it had I not heard other people review books and thought, oh, that sounds really good.
Yeah, and there's definitely genres that I've kind of branched out into because of BookTube and social media. Fantasy I used to read when I was younger and then kind of stopped and didn't really know what was in. Do you know what I mean? Like I used to read Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, like more kind of classic fantasy. And it is great that you can find these sort of niche channels, niche podcasts that cover everything from fantasy to, I don't know, historical erotica and you know all these, you know, smut. This whole channel's dedicated to like smut books, and I just think that's great, because you don't need to kind of like be embarrassed and hide away, because your community is out there and you can definitely find them on all the different platforms. Which is no bad thing. Do you have any particular channels that you would like to recommend?
Yeah, so I've got a couple that I just like to shout out that are newer, because I've followed lots of channels for a really long time, but these are some of the ones that I've come across more recently. So my favourite one to watch at the moment is called And They Were Readers, which is a really, really lovely channel. It's two hosts, so like you were saying before, they really bounce off each other really well. So John and Sierra, they're both in America. I think they're in their mid-20s, and they've recently got back into reading, and they're rediscovering what they like, and they like taking recommendations from comments, and then they'll do reading reviews of what people have recommended them. But they've got a great energy. They laugh a lot in their videos, and they're super friendly, and I love their channel. That's the first one. I've also really loved a channel called Aaron Read a Book, which he's quite a small booktuber. He's got about 600 subscribers, I think, but his channel is very relaxed. He's sort of like he's sitting in the pub talking to you, is how I describe him. He reads quite a lot of older fiction and also fantasy. He calls them his old lady village books, I think, a lot of the authors that he reads. So he doesn't read much contemporary books, but I really like hearing about older books that I wouldn't necessarily come across as well. And then the final one I really love is Freshly Read Books, which is Sarah Freshly.
Yes, we've had Sarah Freshly on here.
She's great. Yeah, she does really good vlogs and sort of really creative ideas for videos and things, but I really love her reviews, and we've got quite similar book taste as well, so I really enjoy her channel. They're my sort of favourites at the moment that are newish to me.
I probably haven't got too many more to add to that, other than I like Hannah May on BookTube, and she also has a Substack who I'd say has quite similar reading taste to me, so I really like her book reviews, and I've enjoyed a lot of the books that she recommends. She talks a lot about chronic illness as well, and shares like non-fiction about chronic illness, and her Substack is great. So Substack's another, I guess, kind of in a way social media platform that's come up in the last couple of years. There's definitely book reviewers on there, which is quite nice to get book reviews kind of straight into your inbox.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I will add Hannah May onto that list of booktubers to follow. We're both a bit old school and don't really have Instagram accounts or TikTok accounts to recommend.
No.
So just YouTube from us.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming on, Sarah. Where
Thanks
can people
so
find you again?
I am at Your True Shelf on BookTube, Your True Shelf on Instagram, but don't expect a lot of posts on there.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So thanks very much for listening. As always, there's loads of ways to get in touch with us with any questions, ideas, feedback, book recommendations. You can email the bookcastclub@outlook.com, or you can get in touch with us on Instagram or TikTok, where we're at Bookcast Club. You can sign up to our newsletter on Substack, where you'll get even more reviews, new releases, our pick of the new releases, podcast recommendations and updates on the pod. And you can always check out our Patreon and give a 7-day free trial a go and listen to all our bonus episodes. We'd love to have you there. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back very soon. Bye.